So let's put labour matters under the spotlight then, and it seems that's dominated the headlines. Scores of South Africans continue to join the ranks of the jobless. To unpack the current national employment picture, I'm joined by Labour Analyst Andrew Levy. Thank you so much for coming through, Mr. Levy. Let's start with...
Thank you, sure.
There's an expression that says we are facing a jobs bloodbath. You look at that, but you also look at the figures that came out from the quarterly labour force survey, which suggested that the last quarter of 2018, there was an addition of some jobs, and it seemed the situation was slightly improving, like 0.4% or something. So which is which? Do we face a jobs bloodbath, or is the situation starting to change?
Yeah. Look, I think the fact of the matter is that we are in very serious trouble with jobs. The difficulty with the labour force survey, the LFS figures, is they come out on a quarterly basis. Very, very short term. There are huge sampling errors. One's got to look behind the figures to see where there have been gains, where there have been losses. The gains are really pretty small, and one can't say that on the basis of that we've turned the corner and we are creating jobs. On the other hand, if we look at the overall infrastructure in terms of what's going on sector by sector, and we take mining, for example, mining is in terrible, terrible trouble. Now, some of the trouble is homemade, some of the problems are inherited, but generally speaking, commodity prices are down, input costs are up, demand is not good, the Chinese economy is faltering, so we're not looking at a tide that is rising. Now, within that, we are still devilled with our labour relations. And if we look from the tragedy of Marikana going forward, we can see time after time the repetition of the same pattern. We see demands made for wage increases which are completely unsustainable. There is a lack of movement, particularly from the unions, which would, in the old LRA, have been regarded as bad faith bargaining. And whether or not this is based on a lack of understanding of how a business works or just sheer, I want what I want and that's it, doesn't really matter at this point. The fact of the matter is that we have lost thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of jobs in the sector, and it's going to carry on the same way, unfortunately.
This narrative then that says the relationships between the various stakeholders at NEDLAC, for example, is improving. You don't buy into that. You still believe that relations continue to be fraught?
No, I think NEDLAC is different. NEDLAC is at a higher level, and I'm sure that people sit around the table, there's toing and froing, there are different opinions. They manage to accommodate them. If we look, for example, at the labour broker issue, the minimum wage issue, NEDLAC came to agreements. The problem is that down at the coal face, or the gold face in this particular cases, we have unions that make demands which are completely unaffordable, and we have a situation where even if the company would like to, it's not going to be able to afford that. Now, already, if we look specifically at the Sibanya situation, they have been in negotiations. The other unions have accepted increases, and the company will do its best to accommodate it. But we have one particular union which refuses that. The strike is dragging on, and at every stage, all it does is it subjects the company to greater and greater losses, and hence their ability to finance it going forward becomes less and less.
So if I'm looking for a silver lining, as I was saying, that I was looking at those quarterly labour force survey figures, one of the sectors that they cited as the source of some of this increase that we saw is manufacturing. Surely that's a good thing?
Any creation of any jobs at this stage is a good thing. But, you know, we've created a few jobs in manufacturing, but potentially we're going to lose 20, 30,000 in mining. So at the end of the day, it doesn't look too positive. We've also got to say, where are the sectors where we can create jobs? And the way mining is right now, what little job creation there is may well be very, very fragile, because at the end of the day, the boards of the companies, who may sit in London, they may sit here, are going to take a view which simply says, if we can mechanise, we will, because it's more certain. And that is the tragedy.
Throw in for me the issue of load shedding. We've had to live with that reality all of this week.
Yes.
And it means that literally businesses and plants grind to a halt,
yes,
and they're making losses.
Yes.
What are we able to say about how that then reflects in the numbers and as far as job creation or losses are concerned?
It certainly is going to affect the job situation 3-6 months down the road, because many firms who face the rolling power cuts are going to go out of business. Small employers, maybe even large employers, will retrench because they lose revenue. They can't produce. So that's a problem. But perhaps more of a serious problem is the fact that foreign investors who are looking to build plants will say, well, we're not going to go to South Africa because we don't know that we're going to get a continuous power supply. They'll look at Eskom in particular, and they'll say, look at the debt, look at the fact that they're trying to restructure, sort it out. The unions are again beating the war drums and saying, never ever, thank you, we'll go somewhere else. So it just adds fuel to, it's a bad analogy if we're talking about Eskom, but it adds fuel to the flames. So all in all, whilst we would all like to look for a silver lining, it's pretty hard to find at the moment.
All right, Andrew Levy, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much
sharing your
indeed.
insights with us. He is, of course, a Labour analyst talking to us about the situation in the labour market.